When I was a student in design, I was required to do an interdisciplinary thesis project, and I decided to do mine on footwear for summer mountaineering. I was lucky enough to do my undergraduate degree in outdoor pursuits, and that was in the same faculty as the Human Performance Lab. So I was able to get a biomechanist to advise me on my project. Now, there's a lot of intellectual property associated with this and a lot of other stories to go along with this, but I'm going to start today's video on things such as this, and this is footwear issues related to winter overnights and basic day-to-day ski touring, ski mountaineering, footwear issues around cold, moisture management, and such. So stay tuned. I'm Darren Jackal. We're in my studio, and this is Experimental Design, Discourse, and Disclosure. Mark Twain once said, 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones that you did do. And this is sort of my motivation, is to not be disappointed in what I didn't do. And I don't want to regret leaving all these projects behind without attempting to push them to some sort of completion. So I'm kind of using this channel and these videos as case studies for these various projects so that I can either push them forward or I can leave them behind and be happy with that. I said I wanted to talk a little bit more about the design process and the product development process, and so I'll just do a little bit of an introduction there. I won't get too far into this, as it can get complicated. But I think we need to start with the fact that what I practice is needs-based, user-focused new product development. If we look at Jay Doblin's very simple, one of the most simple ways to think of the design process is to start with an initial state that has some issues with it. In my case, it would be a user that has a need, and that we can recognize that this is not the greatest situation and that we can envision a better one. And we are going to go through some process to come up with a more desirable state. That's S2. So this P here is the design process, and it fits within the new product development process. They're not the same thing. It's good to distinguish between the two. My design process is evolutionary based. I got into this when I was studying with some computer guys, and I got into evolutionary computation. And so evolution is a very simple system. It uses a very simple algorithm, basically variation and selection, where you have the environment, the selection, that will either allow or disallow new individuals to survive, or they will die. And variation is coming up with those new individuals to put into the environment. So there's a method around this, and I will discuss this a little more. You can see that part of it is really quantifying, and the other part of it is really qualifying. So for myself, once I start a project, there's really two things that I'm interested in, or two main courses of action that I undertake, and that is the quantification of data to create and build a robust environment, a fitness function, and the other is the variation. And this is the interesting area of design that we'll get into later. All right, let's make a coffee, and I will provide a little bit of background on what I'm going to talk about next, and that's what you wear inside your ski boots when you're out on a ski tour. I started backcountry skiing in 1985 on a pair of 215 centimeter double camber misery sticks. I had single leather boots at the time. In 1987 I upgraded my gear, and I picked up some Tutin Edges 205s, and I managed to pick up a pair of Merrow leather double boots that had been remanufactured. Picked them up from a place called the Wild Boys. owned by the late great Dave Cheeseman. Anyways, when I picked up those boots, the guy who was selling them to me convinced me to get a set of Super Gators and neoprene socks. And this is what I'm going to talk about today, is neoprene socks. He told me that if I got neoprene socks and Super Gators, that would keep the boots from getting wet from the inside and wet from the outside. And he was right. When I finally gave them up and moved on to Dynafit, they were in perfect shape. Now the great thing about neoprene is that it's not only waterproof, which means your boots are not going to get wet and they're not going to freeze overnight, is that it provides a very even cushion over your whole foot that stays consistent throughout the day. It doesn't get soggy, it doesn't bunch up, it doesn't slide down, it doesn't cause all kinds of issues that I found with traditional wool socks. And I'm going to talk about the other things I do when I'm overnighting, what I bring with me. That's going to depend on whether or not I'm camping or I'm staying in a hut. So I'm going to start with the really light stuff that I would take with me camping. And then I'll add stuff that I might consider taking with me on a hut trip. Depending on the hut. Is it a fly-in hut? Do they have a sauna? Is it got wood stove? Or is it a ski-in hut like Stanley Mitchell, which is a fair ways in there? I'm not going to take the same thing. Now, they got a wood stove at Stanley Mitchell, but they don't have wood stoves at, say, a Sulky, where they only have propane heat, which is different to get all together. So it's going to depend how far these huts in, whether you're flying in, whether you're humping them in, and it'll also depend on whether or not you're going to be camping. Camping is the worst case scenario. These are the original socks I got from the Wild Boys. They're 5-panel. You need to be wearing a pair of liner socks that will wick moisture away. Problem with these socks is that they're not quite tall enough for my new ski boots, and I'm finding that I get some moisture wicking down and getting the upper portion of the liner boot wet. One of my projects is to make a 5-panel sock like this, but taller. This is what I've been using for the past number of years. Once these ones originally wore out, they're just paddling socks from Mac. Buy them big so they don't constrict your feet and cut off blood supply. So that is the key to day-to-day skiing, and this is the key to overnight, which is just simple, old school shell overbooting. These I've modified a little bit. Suggestion of a friend was to sew some skin material onto the bottom for some traction, and I like these because they fit over top of my liner boots. Okay, so when I'm camping, this is all I take, and if I'm really going light, I'll take just a second pair of liner socks. Maybe I'll take another pair of neoprene socks. Let's move on to talk about what you would take to a ski-in hut that's quite a ways away, and you're going to take as little as possible to keep pack weight down. Next thing on my list to bring is shower sandals. They fit also inside the overshell so that you can quickly put them on and off if you need to go outside. I've found that after years of staying in huts, if you're wearing anything that can get wet, it's going to get wet. And my preference is to just simply wear shower shoes and bare feet inside the hut. And my feet are going to get wet, but if there's a wood stove, my feet will dry very quickly. Next thing, say I'm going to go to Fairy Meadow and I'm going to fly in. I'm going to take these shower shoes, and I'm also going to take some flip-flops. The flip-flops I'll probably wear inside the hut, and these I'll keep for using in the sauna. When I'm coming in from outside after wearing these, I'll make sure I turn them inside out and hang them up to dry. The next thing that you can do is, and I know people hate these as much as some people hate neoprene socks, good old Crocs. The Crocs also fit inside these. What I'm working on with this is a new strap system that secures the over booty to the foot a little bit better. Nothing truly novel, just this kind of design is incremental advancements in usability, details. The three things about a successful product is that they are useful, they are usable, and they are desirable. That's it. I'm Darren Jackal. This has been Experimental Design, Discourse, and Disclosure. Have a good day.